Hi gamers, we are finally back with another gaming episode. Sorry to keep you waiting for so long, but a lot has been going on. But we're back with another episode and maybe another episode next week if we don't get to finish stuff up. So today we're going to be talking about games we've been playing or finished or just stuff we want to talk about. While preparing for the show, we had some intriguing news drop in the last 7 days, so we're going to go into that first. So Adam, what's first on your news list?
Okay, so my first thing is that apparently, according to the internet, hashtag boycott Genshin Impact is popular. And apparently, the reason is there's a couple of them. So basically, what happened was a video dropped not too long ago. And in the video, it was showing some of the development of the game. And it showed an artist referencing some Native Americans dancing, basically, and they were using this for the hilly churls. Now, the hilly churls in the game are basically your equivalent of goblins or orcs or that sort of thing. So they're this kind of primitive race. They carry big clubs and wear loincloths and that sort of thing. And they're kind of the antagonists of the game right now. They're kind of your main enemy that you see out in the wild. And the fact that they were using a reference of a Native American dance, so apparently some people took offense to this, saying that my culture should is not something that it's not okay to use my culture in this manner for these bad guys, basically, as this kind of primitive race. And so that's kind of what started it off. And then that kind of moved into the fact that people are saying that there's a lack of diversity in the game, in the sense that most of the characters have pretty pale skin, with the exception of two characters. And these two characters are Kaya and Shinyan. And Kaya he's the captain of the Knights of Favronius. They're the city guard. They're kind of the army. But he's known for having kind of a disreputable way of dealing with things. So, he'll work with pirates or he'll work with bandits if it's necessary to get the job done. And he's kind of described as an exotic character because he comes from another land that's apparently subterranean and all this, but also due to his appearance, which is the dark skin. And the other character is Xinyan, who's kind of a punk rocker. She's often seen with kind of fire or kind of like spikes, those sort of motifs. And she's described as scary. So people are kind of taking offense to the fact that the only two darker characters, and it's really better to say darker characters because they're really not that dark, but they're darker than the rest of the characters in the game, are kind of seen with these negative kind of stereotypes. They're exotic, or they're scary and that sort of thing. And so people were kind of taking offense to that and saying, this game needs more diversity. And then the final thing was people were saying that the game is promoting pedophilia, in the sense that there is a character, Ulfer, who references his love for another character, Flora. And he says basically he would like to make a boat out of dandelions for her and they could sail off together. Well, Flora is a little girl. And so some people were saying that this is kind of creepy and that this grown man is kind of professing love for this young girl. But as some of the fans pointed out, in the open beta, Flora actually had an adult female model, and that was changed to a child in the actual release of the game, whereas Ulfer's dialogue was not changed. So some people think that's just an oversight, that they just, changed the character model, and so he's saying these things about this character model. But now that the model's changed, it's gone from just a regular conversation to a really creepy conversation. But it does seem that there's a bit of an ulterior motive here, in that after all these complaints, people started kind of pushing for two-factor authentication, and that was listed in these other complaints. So you have this complaint of, we're, using Native Americans as kind of a trope for primitive people. We don't have enough diversity. There's pedophilia. Oh, and we want two-factor authentication. And this two-factor authentication has been on the table, or people have been complaining about it for a long time. So there are some people who think that maybe this is not so much a push for there's a problem in the game, as much as it is we've been wanting this for a while. We haven't been getting news on it. We need a way to get Genshin Impact. We need to bring negative attention to it somehow in order to get what we want and, have them fix these issues. So there is some talk about that. So it's really kind of hard to say what's really going on there. In my personal opinion, I think it's a matter of insensitivity. It is a Chinese game, so I don't think that they intentionally were thinking, "Hey, let's try to make let's make this group look after Native Americans." I don't think they really have that same kind of way of thinking that Westerners do. Where we've had these problems with segregation or civil rights and that sort of thing. And because of that, I don't think it even dawned on them that this could be problematic. So I think it was an insensitivity issue. I don't think it was necessarily a "we're causing trouble here" issue. And as far as the dark characters thing, it's kind of a weird situation because on the one hand, the character's name is Xinyan, so she's very clearly supposed to be Chinese. But now people are kind of labeling her as the darker character, which is kind of a strange thing. And it brings up to me kind of the conversations that happens in anime a lot, where you'll have an anime character with blonde hair and blue eyes, and people will claim that this character is a white character. And they'll say, "Oh, why does anime feature so many white characters?" But then people come along and they're like, "No, no, 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 no. These are just fantastical hair colors. The character's clearly Japanese. They'll have Japanese names like Kisaragi or something like that. So they're not white. You're just projecting white onto them." And this could kind of be the opposite side of that, where it's like, yeah, the character's kind of tan, but she's supposed to be Chinese. But people are projecting their ideas of this character being a slightly tan is a dark skinned character. So it's yeah, it's kind of a weird situation.
While you were talking, which is why our viewers, listeners, of course, you can't see it, but I was just checking out Twitter and I looked up boycott Genshin and boycott Mihoyo. That's how you say it?
Yeah,
You've said it
I
a
think
few.
it's Mihoyo.
Mihoyo. And yeah, the last tweet for boycotting was 6 days ago.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like a flash in the pan thing, and it really just seemed because it like hit one day and it was really big, and then it kind of disappeared. So I don't think people are really. I don't think this was really a problem that people were complaining about or people really saw was a problem. I think this was just kind of a way for people to get attention. It seemed like.
Yes, yes, and I mean, I think it's one of those things. Like a lot of people still love Genshin Impact, still play it a lot. I mean, it's the without a doubt probably the best free-to-play RPG you can get on mobile devices at all.
Oh yeah, no, it's completely free to play, and yeah, it's a full game
So
at
it's,
this
I
point.
mean, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, even if you want to boycott it, but if you've got nothing else to play and you're a gamer or middle-aged gamer or I mean, any gamer really, you're sort of like, well, this sucks, but I've got nothing else to play, so I've got to play it pretty much simply the way I justify playing Hearthstone at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people were kind of thinking that maybe this was more of a way to draw attention to wanting the security issues fixed, and they just needed a way to get MiHoYo's attention, and controversy was the way to do it.
I think though, and I mean, we've both lived here a long time in Asia, and I lived in Korea before. I think the idea of skin color and stuff though is an issue in Asian games. Like you said, be it dark or light, all these people are in Genshin are Chinese because they're made by a Chinese company, have Chinese names. Um, I think this sort of goes to the underlying fact of people always portray, and I mean, you were here, I mean, you've been here, right? And you've noticed, like, in the last few years, like, in Taiwan, we have a wide variety of skin colors, from
Oh yeah.
pale white to absolutely darker than me dark. Um, and that's it. But then I feel like in the last 5 years or so, there's been this push in Asia for like skin whitening creams, and I mean, you've also probably seen it in Western media as well. And I wish games would portray people of color or darker color, regardless of race or ethnicity, that saying, hey, you can be this person as opposed to everyone else being white and then having one or two people being of a dark color or having more varieties and sort of maybe games being the starting point of saying, hey, we live in a multicultural society, even in China or Shanghai. I've heard loads of things. My coworker used to work in Shanghai for a year, and she said, really diverse, lots of people of different skin colors. why do games and other media still focus on these lightly skinned, picture perfect people?
Yeah, I think in Taiwan and in Asia too, though, part of the thing is the skin color isn't so much about racial diversity as it is class diversity. I mean, that's part of the reason why people want to stay pale. It's kind of like my grandmother when she was little. They were farmers, but they would always wear long sleeves and they would always wear the big hats, kind of like what we see a lot of the farmers here wear. And the
Sure.
reason for that was because if you were outdoors and you got a tan, that meant that you were a worker. Whereas if you were affluent, you'd be indoors and you wouldn't have that tan. And I think in Asian culture, there's a big kind of that's kind of the thing. Because, if you're the construction workers or you're these kind of lower class people, you're more likely to be darker skinned than you are if you're, say, an office
Mm.
worker or a doctor, even though you're the same race. Because, I mean, in Taiwan, they're 98% Han Chinese. So, I mean, it's not really an ethnic diversity thing when it comes to colors when 98% of you are the same race. There's some other factor there. And I think in Asia that's kind of the thing, and that's why maybe they don't think of it the same way, because in their mind it's like, oh, if you're dark skinned, it's a class thing, it's not a race thing. um, and that's why if they have these darker skinned characters, sometimes they'll seem like they're from, they're more rough and tumble or that sort of thing. And it's not because they're like, oh, in a certain way they develop these stereotypes that, oh, okay, darker skinned people are like that, but it's not because it's an inherent racial thing. It's a class thing to them.
Ah,
And
but
that's part of the reason with the skin whitening stuff, is because you want to seem higher class, you want to look like you're more affluent.
but it's still wrong. I mean, at the end of the
Oh, it's
day.
still wrong, right? But I'm
Uh,
saying it's not the same motivations.
True, 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 true. And I think it's just things, things need to be changed immediately, and it's still like I think I have my friends. He's British Indian, and his wife Taiwanese, but his kids look really, really Indian. Darker than me because their dad is dark, and they struggle in school so much. And just for me, it's like an uh, reminds me of going to South Africa and going to an all-white school in 1994. When Mandela became president, and this stuff. I mean, in this day and age, in 2021, Taiwanese kids are still hassling these kids who look, their eyes and stuff look Asian, but their skin and stuff looks darker than me, Indian, and they get hassled because of it, which is it's kind of terrible.
Yeah, part of it is kind of things like, for instance, people from, say, Indonesia or Southern Asia typically are darker than people
Mm.
from Taiwan, and people from Southern Asia typically are part of the working class, or they're nurses, or they are typically in the jobs that are less desirable. That's one thing that here in Taiwan that people kind of bring up sometimes, is that there's two classes of foreigners. You have your Western foreigner and you have your Asian foreigners. And the Asian foreigners, unless you're from Japan or Korea, are treated very differently
Totally.
than people like you or me. So,
That is something. That is a topic for another day, perhaps.
perhaps.
Alright, moving on from Genshin Impact, we are going to talk about everyone's favorite store, or maybe not their favorite store, the Epic Game Store. And this is a picture I've used before, but anyway, so if you are not hiding under a rock or just, in some sort of temple having a cleanse or something like that, I don't know why I said that, but uh, Epic Game Store was the news last week. We'll attach an article, as always, in the show notes today. So have a look for Adam's article, have a look for my article. It was reported on a bunch of news outlets. Epic Games released their revenue, and it showed that they lost, I think, somewhere close to $300 million on Epic Game Store exclusives. An update to this story was yesterday, where Tim Sweeney tweeted, I was like, oh wow, great, we lost $300 million. That shows that it is working. And wow.
It's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. So a lot of people are like, well, is this really the way to go? You could be using that money for other things. That was a favorite YouTuber of mine said that. I mean, it is working, you know, because I mean, on top of the stats, it shows the Epic Store has been growing, and because of their exclusives, so there is that. But it's, I mean, I still think, you know, they've got the backing, so they can keep on doing this. But I think it's like a few people have mentioned, this is, yeah, it's not really the way to go, and it's still sort of very divisive. I mean, as long as the Epic Store is being in business, people are still hesitant to use it. Our friend that I mentioned, Hans, he's still really afraid of China stealing his information on the Epic Store. Because, you know, for those people who've not listened to us before, Tencent is a minority shareholder, and the CEO of Epic always mentions this continuously, that they are a minority shareholder and Epic has control. Um, Apparently, look at my air quotes, or listen to my air quotes as I'm saying air quotes. Um, so there's that. I don't know. I think Epic will never catch up to Steam personally, and I think Epic could be doing maybe a more have a more positive impact on the whole gaming store, more innovation. Because I mean, since we've last talked about Epic, I mean they've got reviews in, they've got a refund policy. There's still no forums. The UI is still extremely simple. I mean that's kind of good, but I think they're still lagging far behind. They could be offering way more advantages as opposed to saying, "Hey, come to our store because we are the only store who has X, Y, and Z." And it's still great for the developers, as you can see on the graphic. They still make a lot of money. But there was a game actually that I saw that's released on Steam and released on Epic, and literally it's the same price on both. And I find recently it's very rare to find games that have a significant price drop from on the Epic Store as opposed to the Steam Store. I can think the last one was a pre-order for Far Cry, where I think you saved like 300 Taiwanese dollars or 10 US dollars on the Epic Store, and for some people, yeah, I'd pay the Steam price. Why not? What do you
You
think,
already have the
Adam?
library there. Yeah, like I was saying, if you already have the library on Steam, why have two libraries when you could just have the one? I,
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's kind of hard to say because on the one hand, it's kind of how old is Epic Game Store now?
Oh,
Two
that is
years?
a good question. Let me do a quick Google. How old is the Epic Game Store?
2 years? 3 years?
Epic Games has been around for 27 years.
Well, yeah, but I mean it's
Epic
different.
Game Store, December 6th, 2018, 2 years ago. Oh, good
So two
memory.
years ago, I mean, okay, I like for instance, people say when you first open a restaurant, you're not going to make money for your first year. You know, expect to lose money for that first year. So, and then the Epic Game Store is obviously that scaled up tremendously, right? So, I mean, the fact that they're losing money right now isn't that surprising. And on the other hand, too, I mean, Game Pass is losing money, right? Currently, they're not making money. I mean, the whole idea is that they want to get people on board, and then once so the market growth outpaces the uh, was it the market growth outpaces the cost or something like that. And so the idea is that they want to build that base first. And so to say that they're losing money is problematic. I mean, yeah, I think it's hard to say because on the one hand, yes, obviously they could be spending that money on something else. But on the other hand, uh, it's yeah, you got to it takes money to make money. But I did hear that there's apparently was it because this came out because Apple pointed it out, right? Because Apple was trying to justify the fact that Epic Game Store should not be allowed on their iOS. Right? Wasn't that kind of how this all came to be in the first place? Was Apple was saying, see, these guys aren't responsible with their money, therefore we have no obligation to allow them on our system.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know what the because I mean I don't know. Steam is so old at this point; it'd probably be really hard to go back and see how much money they made. I guess they probably didn't even lose that much early on because they didn't really have competitors, so they didn't have to worry about it. It was just pure, profit and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't really know. I mean, because when you look at how much games cost these days, 300 million is That's quite a few games that you could have made.
Totally. I mean, exactly. It's just an astonishing amount of money, and then, I mean, they're still going at it. I'm still claiming my free games on the Epic Store. Uh, it's still, and I mean, they're still. I mean, they're still gonna be paying out. You know, every week there's a new free game, and they still must be paying out millions of dollars on a weekly basis to those companies.
Yeah, and I mean, Epic was saying that the reason that this was actually okay because it was a long-term solution, basically, where they were saying that Steam was just so much bigger than they were that they had to spend, because that was the argument that they were making, was Microsoft says they're or not Microsoft, sorry, Apple said that Steam is or sorry, getting all my people mixed up today. Apple's was saying that Epic was losing money, and because of that, they were basically not able to protect their users or whatever. You know, they're not being responsible. Whereas from Epic's perspective, it's not we're losing money, it's we are investing money by doing these things for the future. So, you know, it's one of those things where, is it a loss or is it an investment? You know, and that's, I think, where it gets complicated is, you know, yeah, because when you invest something, obviously, you know, if you label all your investments as losses, then basically every time we make an investment, we would be like, oh, this isn't working out, we should not do this. But the whole point of an investment is to lose money now to make more later.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think this is kind of I don't know if it's problematic or not.
I still think there's something like, I mean, Microsoft just announced another purchase yesterday, which is
Yes, the
some
biggest one yet.
$20 billion. So, but I think that the big difference is that we know, in the case of Microsoft, Microsoft's money is Microsoft's money, but with Epic, there is Tencent. I mean, we've seen. I mean, not. I mean, I was going to say not to get political. We're always political on this show, so. If you've not been watching the news, you know, China has been building up ships close to the Philippines as well as continuous flyovers into Taiwan, as well as a bunch of other stuff, actually. But so, I mean, the current state of the Chinese political party, or the CCP, is in an aggressive state, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are the ones who, you know, who they say, hey, Tencent, give us all this American user data from Epic Store, or we put you in jail like Jack Ma and fine you $2.8 billion like Alibaba.
That's possible.
It's possible. Again, this is all rumor, but it's. I think it's dangerous. It's where, I mean, God, I hate to sound Trumpish, but where being American, or being owned by an American company is safer. I mean, my older brother always says, would you rather be tracked by being tracked by the Chinese and being tracked by the NSA is different? I'm like, yeah, of course, I'd rather trust the NSA than trust the Chinese. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. But I mean, again, Tencent only owns what, 10%?
It's more now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been hearing similar things about Reddit being overrun with bots and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know.
It's 40% now,
Oh wow.
as of last year.
Wow.
September 2020, they own 40% of Epic Games.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Epic's revenue is. I mean, okay, so we're saying they're losing 300.
They lost 300, yeah, up to Q1 2021.
How much? I guess how much money is coming in would be the question. So how much money is coming in versus how much money is going out, and then figuring out the ratio there to figure out is 40%? Is the 40% kind of a ratio there of what we're seeing? You know.
Yes, yes.
So somebody could do math on it, I guess.
And I mean, Tencent, they've got the money. They are the officially the biggest gaming company in the world. I mean, because of the 1 point something billion people in China, and you know, the whole free-to-play thing that works out in Asia, and Chinese people spend loads of money there. And they've also were locked down for some periods of time during COVID-19, and so I'm sure Tencent has been doing as well as a lot of the other gaming companies.
Well, especially because games in China are highly regulated. I mean, only a few years ago they finally released the ban on consoles so that people could finally get consoles, and
Yes.
now they're kind of, I guess, cracking back down on it.
Ah, life.
Yeah.
All right, we're enough. We're done with this. We're moving on to the next topic, which is Adam's experiences with Free Fire, and he's gonna explain what is Free Fire for those who don't know it.
Yeah, I had not heard about Free Fire until we were playing. I don't remember what I was playing, but one of our viewers, Vishal, said you should try out Free Fire, and I had never heard of it before. So Free Fire is developed by, I don't know if it's 111.studios or 111.studios. I don't know, but there's 3 ones in a row there. And its publisher is Garena, which goes back to the whole Asian free play thing because they are huge.
Oh yeah,
Sorry, they are huge here. I believe they're the ones that run League of Legends in Asia. Is that correct?
I think you could be right because I was just gonna mention like you guys know Adam and I are teachers. One of the few things our students know, even from a young age, is teacher. Do you know Garena or League?
Yep.
They say LOL and they say Garena, and then that's how I heard about Garena.
Yeah, so Garena, they just run tons and tons and tons of games. So this game was released back in 2017 on September 30th, and it is available on Android and iOS. However, when I was playing it due to streaming, playing it on the phone would have been very, very difficult. So what I ended up doing is getting an emulator, and you played it on the PC using an emulator. So that is definitely an option as well. And I do think that gave me a slight advantage. I did win more matches than I would have expected early on, and I wonder if having a mouse and keyboard was part of that, giving me a slight edge over people that were playing on just their phones. However, also from what I've heard is the game is actually designed to kind of ease you into it, in that you start off with, I think, at least 50% of the players are bots at low levels.
Oh,
And
okay.
as you move up in levels, it starts phasing bots out and phasing other players in. So it kind of eases you in. Now, I did enjoy it. It was fun enough, but you could definitely tell that this was a game designed to promote microtransactions, and it was a bit of a sink, a money sink. And this, for the first 5 levels or so, it wasn't really an issue. But then once I started hitting higher levels, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, you should get this, in order to get this unlock for the week, you need to do this. And, the easiest way to do that is to spend real money to get this thing. And so because of that, it became very apparent later on that that it was not necessarily pay to win, but that it was definitely designed as something you were supposed to be sinking money into, as opposed to something like League of Legends, where most of the money goes into things like skins, where it's a way to show off. And that was another thing, was I noticed as I got higher in level, it started getting significantly more difficult, because you would have people starting off matches with weapons, as opposed to me, who would have to basically find weapons early on. And not only that, but some people would have very, very strong weapons very early on in the game. And so it definitely seemed like you were supposed to be paying something into it so that you get kind of these advantages. So in a sense, it did seem that it was not pay to win, but pay to have an advantage. And the other thing I noticed is it seemed like a lot of the things that you would have were timed. So if you had bought something, you would maybe unlock a weapon, but you'd only unlock it for, say, 7 days. So it seemed like the kind of thing that you're supposed to continuously pump money into it. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, this is kind of fun, but I don't really know if this is the game for me, so I'll try something else. And so I have a couple other battle royales. I have PUBG on my PlayStation 5 because that was free 1 month for PlayStation Plus, and I have Apex because Apex is free for everybody. So yeah, I tried it. It was fun, but I think I had my fun with it, and I don't know if I'll go back. So
Okay. I'm looking at your gameplay right now because I don't think I've ever actually watched all of it. Um, I mean, my first question would be, for middle-aged gamers, would be time commitment. I mean, if you were playing this like like I typically do, which is I don't play for more than an hour a session. I mean, on your phone, an hour a session, do you think that's doable or?
if you have the battery life for it. But the individual matches actually weren't that long. They were relatively short. I don't think the map is all that big, and yeah, the time to kill wasn't all that high. So yeah, I think it was actually pretty doable. There was like a case, for example, where uh, my wife took a shower and I just popped in, and I was able to do 2 matches within the time that she was finished with her shower. And in one of those matches, I was in the top 5. So, I was up right up until the end. So it's really quick. I mean, it's designed as a mobile game, so it's not designed to take much longer than a bus ride
Okay.
per match.
That jives with what I remember when this was really hot, probably in Taiwan, I guess, maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Um, and I remember students, taking their phones out at break time and like playing Free Fire and actually being done in 10 minutes. I'm like, that's incredible.
Yeah, like I said, the time to kill is pretty quick. That was one thing I kind of noticed, was that I could kind of see a guy, and if you see a guy, boom, 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 they're dead. After playing Apex, the time to kill definitely seems a lot higher in that game. So this one seems that you can kill people relatively quickly. The map is also feels a lot smaller. Like I could traverse it quite a bit more quickly. So because of that, you're not going as far, and so you can kind of meet up in because the way battle royales work is you have a zone, and the zone progressively gets smaller. I don't know if you've read the original story, either the I guess it's originally a novel, and then they turned it into a manga, and then they turned it into a movie. But in the original story, basically these kids, it's kind of like the Hunger Games in the sense that they use these battle royale matches to kind of appease the crowds and keep people placated. But what they do is they put these collars around the kids' necks, and they'll explode. Uh,
Oh God.
yeah. So what'll
This
happen is
a
they put them on
Japanese
an island.
movie?
It's a Japanese movie based on a manga, which is based on a book.
Oh, okay, okay.
But basically, the idea is they put you on an island, and the island has a grid, and they'll make an announcement saying this area of the grid will become a danger zone. And once that area becomes a danger zone, if you are within the area, your collar will explode. So progressively, nodes on your map become inaccessible. So you're basically forcing people into smaller and smaller areas. The way they do it in the game is it's a big circle, and the circle just condenses, 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 and gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then eventually, you're forced into a very small area with each other. And that happens in this game relatively quickly. So you're kind of funneled in. You don't know where the circle's going to be. All you know is that, there's going to be it'll show you on the map where the circle's going to be, and then it'll shrink down, stay at that size for a while, and then it'll show you where the next circle is. So it could be exactly in the middle, it could be kind of offset, but you know that it's going to be, somewhere within, but it's getting smaller and smaller progressively. So, but yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely designed as a money sink, and for me, that was why I was kind of like, because otherwise it was actually kind of fun. I did enjoy it.
Okay. Okay.
But controlling it on a mouse and keyboard, you could still tell it was designed for mobile. There were certain things that set me off, like I'm used to when I sprint, I'll hit the sprint button, and then you still hold, like, as long as you hold down forward, you continue forward, and as soon as you let go of the up key, then you stop sprinting. This one was you hit sprint, and then you'll sprint, and then you can hit side to side to control your side movement. But if you hit up, then you won't move. So for a long time, I was like hitting sprint, but I'm just like jerking along because I don't know the controls, because they're designed for mobile. But
Yes.
but yeah,
Okay.
but it worked.
Very good, very good. So moving into the future, unlikely you will return to Free Fire unless it is requested.
Yeah, if it's requested, I'll do it again. But again, it's one of those things too where, like I said, it does seem like a money sink, especially if you want to progress quickly. And even if it's requested, I don't think I'm going to be able to progress at a speed that makes it that desirable, because people want to see like high end stuff, right? And it would
Sure.
just take a really long time to reach that point.
No, I understand.
Especially without spending real money. So
last question, quick question. How was performance? How was the look on the PC? How did it run?
performance was fine. I mean, it's definitely designed graphically as a mobile game. But if you're kind of an old school gamer like me, you can survive perfectly fine with GTA 3 graphics. They're not a problem for me. I could definitely see that's one thing that I don't really get is a lot of times now you get kind of young, especially younger gamers. They'll see these games and they're like, "Oh man, the graphics on this game suck," and I'm like, "Who cares, right? It's about gameplay." Um, and I know a lot of people because of that really prefer kind of stylized graphics, something like say Fortnite, where you can kind of simplify things because you don't have to go into these really super rich textures or realism. But yeah, graphically it was fine. Frame rates, it was fine. I think you can I've seen there are I think 3 major emulators that people use, and different people recommend different ones. Some of them they say they control a little bit better. Other ones they say you can get 60 frames per second out of it. So if you are going to play it on PC, definitely look at the different emulators you can get.
Okay.
Pick which one works best for you.
That's some solid advice. All right, and with that, we will bid goodbye. Sorry, that was fireworks, I guess. I hope. We're going to move on from Free Fire to my game, which is going to be Control, released by Remedy Entertainment. And Control is a game I've been playing for a while now. I don't even know how many hours I've gotten, but I don't think it's that long. Published by 505 Games, released worldwide on August 19th, 2019. Available on pretty much most platforms. I've enjoyed it. I was very surprised. And while I say enjoy, there's still loads of parts that sort of make me uneasy or a little bit freaked out. And because there's lots of sort of dark areas and textures, and everywhere you walk in the game, there's sort of like bodies hanging in the air. One thing I do enjoy, though, is the story is cool and the sciencey bits are kind of cool. If you ever watched this TV show on Sci-Fi called Warehouse something or the other. I can't remember. It's like Warehouse 29 or 73. It's some number. Anyway, in that show, the idea is that in the world there exist objects of power, and these objects can affect the real world. Could make things appear or disappear or affect people's personalities or cause shifts in time or shifts in reality or shifts in the physical composition of objects. And in this sort of reality of Earth, you were in the FBC, which is the Federal Bureau of Control, which is, I guess, the idea of control comes from. And your job, or this bureau's job, is to find objects of power and contain them. And these objects of power can do lots of things. And in this world as well is that there are thresholds or sort of the gaps between different planes of existence. And their job is to like sort of police it and control it and make sure it doesn't affect people. I'm not going to go into the story more than that, but it's a really cool story. It looks really good, but it requires a really good system to take advantage of it. And the action's really good, lots of really cool mechanics. It's overall, I mean, Adam prefers not to put numbers on games. I prefer to put numbers on games just because it sort of keeps things simple in my simple brain. So, I would give this game a 7.5 to an 8 because as I played it yesterday, if you didn't watch the stream last night, you should have watched it. I was actually not really enjoying it towards the end of the stream. And not because I was tired. I was actually, okay, because I streamed later anyway. But it's just because it was sort of like more of the same. I've gotten all the powers. And you have multiple guns in this game, or forms of the gun. Because you have a gun, and that gun has many forms because it is an object of power. But it's sort of the game, when I talked about Godfall, is that Godfall had many weapons. But in this game, you're sort of stuck with, I believe, the only 2 acceptable forms for engaging in combat. One for long range, one for short range. Everything else is kind of terrible, actually. So that's something I don't like. And the modding system as well is your guns can only get 1 mod each. And you've got a lot of mods. And if you watched the stream last night, I was sort of uncrafting, whatever the word is for that, a bunch of mods because my inventory was full, but they have all these mods, and I felt like, okay, all this other stuff is cool, but it's not as effective for combat. So it's, I mean, look, I'm complaining about it now, but it's a fantastic game. The powers are really cool. The physical effects are. It's a really fantastically good looking game. I was very tempted, to be honest with you guys right now. If you're watching or you're listening, I was very tempted to uninstall it yesterday because I'm finding myself like I think I started at maybe a little bit before 10 p.m., maybe 9:58 or 9:57. By the time it got around to 10:50 p.m., I was like, I don't really want to play this anymore. I did like a side mission that took up a lot of time, and it was interesting. But I'm like, oh, I would have loved to have been playing Evil Genius 2 or playing some Hearthstone or giving something else a try. It's and they're puzzles and stuff. Like if you're watching the stream right now, you can see they're like sort of minor puzzles, and those are kind of cool as well. But again, it's still cool. It's a great game. I would thoroughly encourage you to get it. I would even say if you're somebody who has a short attention span like I do, forget about the side quests. I just did a side quest yesterday because I thought, I mean, how long is this going to be? And it ended up being an hour. Adam's friend and friend of the show, Ben, he's played it. He put in 40 hours because he did a lot of the side quests. I'm definitely not close to that. He said I am close to the end of the game, and I think I am if I didn't get distracted yesterday by a side quest. So it's a great game. Looks great. I would say get it on a PS5 if you can, because on a PC you're going to need a pretty beefy graphics card to actually make full use of the material effects and the smoke and the ambient occlusion and all the other like cool stuff to make it look good. Because I have a 1080 GTX and I can't run this at 4K and stream at the same time because it's just that good looking. All right, questions, thoughts, comments?
Okay, so I originally, I have to admit, I was wrong. I thought that this was part of the Southern Reach trilogy, which is part of Annihilation, but apparently, like if you've seen Annihilation, the movie, because I know in the Southern Reach trilogy they have a lot of these weird kind of science kind of things going on, but apparently the book from the Southern Reach trilogy is called Authority, not Control, so I got confused. But apparently this is based off of SCP, right?
What is SEP?
SCP is something contain. It's like this really popular. You can ask our students; they're super. A lot of them are super huge into it. SCP is it's kind of this internet popular thing now. What does it stand for? I'm trying to remember. It's yeah, I don't remember what it's. SCP Foundation. It's maybe study contain. I don't remember exactly. I have to look it up. Protect or something like that. Yeah, maybe. But basically, they have all these different monsters, and they're all numbered. So there's like SCP, I don't know, 150 or SCP 003 or whatever. So this was apparently inspired by those sort of things. But so how does the gameplay work? Because obviously there's some like gravity manipulation and things like that, or
I mean,
how does that work with gunplay and all that?
the gameplay is pretty much as you start out the game. One of the first things you get is the not the first thing actually. The second thing you get is the gun, the transformable gun, and you find the documentation later that says this gun has been around for thousands of years. It used to be Excalibur, going back into the day of the knights, and it changes forms. But basically, I mean, this game is a shooter game. You shoot stuff, and you gain powers. But I find myself shooting a lot more. I guess Ben used his powers a lot more. And going back to another thing was like for me, you have a lot of different powers, but I tend to use the kinesis power, kinetic power, kinestology. No, kinesis, telekinesis power. A lot more, and the guns. That's pretty much it. I don't use. You have a shield power. I've used mind control a lot recently as well, but you get that. I mean, a good 10, 15 hours later into the game. But the gameplay loop is basically you're going to places, you're killing everything, you're doing something, and that's pretty much it. And you get experience, and you get to level up different abilities that you have, and health, and that sort of stuff.
Is the game linear, or is it kind of mission based, where you like complete a mission that goes
mission
to like a
based?
screen? And, okay.
Yes.
So it's not just one continuous thing.
No, no, no. It's definitely not linear because you do have choices as to how to approach. Like you can do side missions, or you don't have to do side missions. And if you watched my stream last night, or even this stream as well, you get things where the game will give you sort of like this objective, and if you do this, you get this crafting material in the game, and that's like a sort of not even a side quest; it's like a mini side quest.
So is it kind of like an open world kind of thing where you can go anywhere, or is it like if you don't do a certain side quest at certain points of the game, you just miss them?
Um, it is open world in the sense that you even the side quests themselves you don't have to do. Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you can return anywhere on the map.
Yeah. You can if you want to go back to a certain area, and I did that last night. It's like I'm like, oh, this is the way to go. And actually, I'd already been there, and there were monsters that had respawned, and different kinds of monsters from when I first cleared that area initially in that same stream.
Okay, so I was thinking it was more like something like Doom where you're kind of progressing through it, but this is actually kind of like you're moving throughout the facility back and forth and that sort of thing.
Yes. And you can go. I mean,
Okay.
like when you go to a control point in the game, you can fast travel between control points. I mean, it's like fast travel is not that far, but it's definitely faster than actually walking in the game. But yeah, you can fast travel to go back to this area because as you're going through the game, they have a cool mechanic. I mean, which is called clearance level. So if you want to go into certain areas, you need a clearance level, and in the game, you'll go starting from the very first level. You'll go to points where it says clearance level 4, and right in the beginning of the game, you only have clearance level 1, which are like ID badges that you get from people. So like where I am in the game right now, I have clearance level 6, and I have doors that say clearance level 9 on them. So there are motivations to go back into the game to interact with objects of power that are behind certain clearance levels. Like this is a jukebox that's behind a clearance level 4 door that I'd love to go back to, but I probably won't because I'm getting a little bored of the game. But yeah, so that there are motivations to go back to points.
So would you say this is kind of like a Metroidvania in a way?
Given that I've never played a Metroid game, I have no comparison.
Oh, okay. Because like Metroid or Jedi Fallen Order, you go through and you play the world, but as you progress and you get new powers, you can kind of unlock shortcuts between different areas of the map. And
I can say that reminds me of the Tomb Raider games, the most recent ones, where you can go back to certain areas in the Tomb Raider games and fast travel, and there are stuff that you can now access because of things you've crafted or things you've built, and you can deal with certain things better.
so similar to that.
Yep.
Okay. How do the powers work? Is it kind of like BioShock, where you have some sort of like in there they have what is it called, Atom or whatever, and it's basically like mana, or is it all cooldown based, or how are you able to manage your abilities?
So the lady you're playing is, oh my God, Jessie McFadden, and she was in an area in this reality of Earth that her and her brother were there, and they were exposed to an object of power, which is why she has these powers that she can use, and it's based on an energy. So you have an energy bar which you can upgrade as you go through the game. To give you an idea, so I can use telekinesis probably 3 times in a fight, and it recharges really quickly. So if I'm fighting 5 guys, and I mean, at this stage in the game, if I use telekinesis, it's not going to kill a guy immediately, but it'll knock him down. And I could use it on 3 different guys before I'd have to wait roughly 20 seconds before it recharges again.
Okay, so it will recharge.
Oh yeah, it recharges, and you can speed it up with mods. You can speed it up with upgrades as well, depending on the build. So this definitely is a game where you could go back and play it again and do a totally different build if you're inclined to that.
Okay, so is it kind of like an RPG element, or does it use trees, or how do the mods work?
Trees.
Oh, okay.
So the mods modify your guns, the mods modify yourself, and but your guns only have a maximum of 2 mods each, and yourself or your person has a maximum of 3 mods.
What's the gun variety like?
So there are only 4 guns.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
basically what, just like pistol, shotgun.
Pistol,
standard there.
shotgun, equivalent of a sniper rifle, and a Gatling gun.
Oh, okay.
And basically it's the same gun, it's just the gun changes forms.
Okay,
Yes.
like Excalibur.
Yes.
I think that's probably where the SCP things come in, because a lot of these SCP things are sometimes they're objects, sometimes they're creatures. But probably in this case, the inspiration for the SCP inspiration that I was reading about is probably the gun itself. So,
Okay.
yep.
All right, we are running low on time as usual. I knew the news was going to cut into our show time.
It was actually relatively short.
It was. Usually when you talk about news, we ended up being like 10-10, and then we do another 10-10 for our individual games, and then we're down to 40, and
Well, we had to cover politics.
we did, yes. All right, so I figure you want to dive into Apex
I can do
quickly,
Apex.
and then
Sure.
we'll close things down.
All right. Well, I can do Apex relatively quickly because I mean it is another battle royale, so it is very similar to Free Fire in a lot of ways. The only real difference, well, let's go into the background of it. It's developed by Respawn Entertainment. Those are the same guys that did Titanfall. It is in the same universe as Titanfall, and supposedly the next set of updates is going to bring it more in line with Titanfall, but it's not really clear how. It's developed, or sorry, the publisher is EA, so of course everybody loves EA. And the release date, the original was February 4th, 2019 on the PC, the PlayStation, and the Xbox. It was released March 9th this year for the Switch, and it is supposedly coming out for Android and iOS in 2022, but there is no date. It's just the year currently. So Apex is, again, like I said, another battle royale similar to Free Fire or PUBG, but the difference here is that there's more of a focus on team play. So you really are working in groups of threes. I think there's a mode where you can play in pairs, but it's designed to be working in groups of threes. And beyond that, unlike PUBG, in Free Fire, you could unlock different characters, and the characters would have their own kind of perks. Like the guy that I was using most of the time, I think he starts off the game with like a base armor set, basically. Um, but in Apex, every character has a set of abilities and that sort of thing. So you have primarily your tanks, which are harder to kill, and they usually have some kind of shield ability or something like that. You have your medic kind of class that can heal other players, and then you have your kind of your DPS guys. These are the guys that are going to be the heavy damage dealers. And then you have your recon guys, and your recon guys are the ones that are going to be working as scouts and helping you find the other teams or navigate the map somehow to get around a little bit easier. And so, when you start a match, it'll basically have kind of a bar, and it has the first character for a few seconds, and then, or this first player for a few seconds, the second player for a few seconds, third player for a few seconds. So you can kind of figure out what your team's going to be. So if you see somebody else picking a medic character, you might think, okay, well, I was going to go with a medic, but now I'll go with, say, a recon guy or something like that. So it does help to play as a few different characters and be familiar with them, just in case the character that you were planning to play as gets selected by somebody else. But other than that, it's pretty much standard fare. You drop into the area, you don't have anything on you. So in this way, it's definitely not pay to win in the same way that Free Fire was. This one, pretty much everything you're paying for are things like skins, or pretty much skins or emotes, or if you win, or when you come in, it'll show you like a card or something like that, so you can pay for those sort of things. So basically cosmetic stuff, and for me, that was a big reason why it appealed more. Now, the first time I played it, I didn't really enjoy it that much. Part of it was because I was playing it on the PS3, but I was playing it through remote play on my PC, and for whatever reason that day, it was just not working out. I mean, if you watch that feed, the quality was dropping really badly, and I could not see what was happening a lot of the time. It was just bad, and I don't know why. So that day, I actually had to leave the computer and pop over to the PlayStation 3 and restart the stream, or so the PlayStation 5, and restart the stream over there, because it was just that bad. And so then I was like, okay, I'll give this game another shot, but what I'll do is I will play it on Steam. So then I started playing it on Steam. And because I had already progressed to level 3 or 4, I said, okay, I'm going to progress to that same level. So when I do it a second time, I'll already be at that level. So I played, and it was all right, but I don't think I really got into it until the third time I played, which was actually my second stream. And that time I started getting a little more into it. And I think part of it was because I started kind of playing around with some of the control schemes. So, for example, messing with the buttons, like, okay, I want crouch to be on a toggle, not on hold. I want my zoom to be on a hold, not on a toggle. I want my grenade to be on this button. I want my, so when I started controlling it and I could have kind of, customizing my controls, I think I started enjoying it a little bit more. And also, I think I started kind of, because the first time I played, I pretty much only played as one character. And the second time I played, I was trying a different character. And I think that kind of gave me a little better. And then, I mean, it also helped that my team won a match. So that helped too. I finally got a kill. So again, that's the thing. In like Free Fire, I was getting kills a lot. And in this game, I was not getting kills for a very long time. I think even now I'm up to like level 7 or 8 and I only have 2 kills. And I would go into a match and I'll see something and there'll be somebody in their level 30 and they have 0 kills, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like what's going on in this game? So it seems like certain characters are better geared for it than others, and it definitely seems a lot harder in certain ways, whereas I was definitely racking them up in Free Fire a bit more. But as I'm doing it, uh, I'm definitely enjoying it a little bit more. Where I'm done with Free Fire, I think I will probably play Apex Legends a few more times just to see how it goes. So that's definitely good. So yeah.
Okay. I'm definitely saying, I'm like, it would be nice, for you and me to play this together, actually.
Oh yeah, totally. You can play in groups of 3, and apparently there's a bonus, I think, to experience gain if you're playing with friends.
Oh, okay. Very cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I've when this came out, I saw lots of good things about it, about the fluidness of combat, and people like this a lot.
Absolutely.
And I mean, this is why this is one of the top played games on Twitch, one of the most streamed games as well. Because it looks fun, it runs great on a variety of systems, and I think if once it launches on mobile, it's gonna be I wouldn't be surprised if this is a hit on mobile as well.
Yeah, it is very fluid. They don't have the wall running that Titanfall has, but they do have this where if you see a wall and you
Yeah.
run at the wall, the character will kind of run and climb up the wall. So there's a lot of kind of like wall scaling and that sort of thing. So you definitely feel like you're very maneuverable. They do things like if you're sprinting and you go into a slide, you get a small speed boost
Oh,
out of a
okay.
slide. If you're going downhill and you slide, you can slide all the way down the hill at a really high speed. So it is very mobile, and I think I think part of what for me really clicked is the first time I was playing, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really, so I'm just kind of picking up any weapon and using it. And by the third time I was playing, I was kind of starting to identify like, oh, I remember this one. Oh, I remember that one. And I'm starting to kind of figure out what kind of weapons mesh with me, which kind of weapons don't really mesh with me. And I think that is kind of helping out where I'm kind of, I can kind of figure out like, oh, okay, I like this one. I don't like this one. So if I'm running around and I see it on the ground, I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a weapon. I'll pick up anything. But, oh, like, should I swap it or not? I'm starting to get to the point where like, oh, yeah, I should definitely swap for this one because I prefer this one. It fits my play style better. And I think that was really when it started to mesh for me, was when I was starting to be able to identify weapons and being like, okay, I like this one. I like the way it feels. I don't like this one, you know. So
Okay. To sum it up, for people in 2021, maybe they've never played Apex, or they're like me, watching your video, listening to you talk right now, is like, oh, this would be cool to play with somebody else. Um, I mean, how would you sum it up?
I think that this game would be way more enjoyable with other people because they do have team chat, and I've never used it. But yeah, I could definitely see where, because people ping a lot, which is really good. So you get a lot of those pings, and I think that's really really good because I'm playing with a lot of Chinese people, or Chinese speaking people, I should say. Some of them are probably Chinese, a lot of them are probably Taiwanese. But they ping something and it'll say, because my version of the game is English, it'll say something like, oh, Mozambique here, and I'm like, oh, okay, so there's a Mozambique, which is basically a shotgun pistol, and I'm like, okay, I know where that is. But you know but I've had the first time I was playing, there was the guy on there, and he was like, he keeps going, he's like, 会说中文吗? 你会说中文? And I'm like, I don't want to talk to people, so I was like, because also too, when you're streaming, I feel like it would be awkward to talk to people and then talking on the stream at the same time. So the fact that there's a lot of pinging, I think, really helps with that kind of international play. But having other people that you can chat with and kind of strategize with and that sort of thing, I think would make it a lot more fun, as most shooters are. I think
True.
yeah. And I think if you could play in a group of 3, it would be optimal. Just because then you have your set team, and I think you can coordinate the characters a little bit better. You can kind of say like, okay, we need this or we don't need that. Or,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Okay. It's that time of the show where I asked Adam the wonderful question of what are we going to talk about next week? Do you want to get into Children of the Zodiacs? Children of Zodiacs?
Children of Zodiacs? I mean, we can. We've done games for 2 weeks now.
Oh, do you want to go back to a philosophy topic?
I mean, we can, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Do you have one?
I do not have one off the top of my head either.
Okay. I might be done with Children of Zodiacs by then. It's actually really short.
Okay, then let's like you said, we have done games for 2 weeks, so maybe let's go into a philosophical topic then for next week, and we'll think of one between now and then, and just go with that.
Sounds good.
Okay. Then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and whoever you are, wherever you are, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We're still looking out for these messages. Hit us up. I mean, what do you think about Apex? What do you think about Control? Have you played any of these games? What should Adam and I be streaming? When should we be streaming? Are we streaming at the wrong times? Tell us. Well, I mean, we have the ability to change within reason, of course, but we are part-time streamers, part-time podcasters. So we can do our best to meet your demands. And thanks a lot for watching. And keep an eye out for the stream as usual next week, Tuesday. Adam, streaming-wise this week, Wednesday and Friday, yes, no, maybe?
Wednesday, yes. Friday, I'm not sure. I'm scheduled to do filming this week, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to finish on Thursday or not. So. But
okay.
Tomorrow I should definitely be streaming.
What should Children of Zodiacs tomorrow?
I think I'll play Children of Zodiacs tomorrow. Yeah, like I said, it's really short, so yeah. Apparently it's only 20 missions, and I'm already on like mission 12 or something like that.
Oh, wow, that is short.
Casually. Yeah, it's really short.
Okay. Same for me. This week, Thursday, Hearthstone as usual. I'll be playing ranked play, and Friday will be probably be Evil Genius 2, because like I said, I'm getting a little bit bored of Control, but maybe we'll just stick to Control, Hearthstone, Evil Genius, Monday, Thursday, Friday. And that's it. Do you want to say anything before we say goodbye?
Yeah. Apparently, my title game is weak, so if anybody has some good titles I can use for streams, please let me know so we can have a strong titles game.
Okay, and that's it then. We will see you guys tomorrow morning to watch Adam stream. Tune in. He always does really, really cool voices.
Oh, it's Children of Zodiacs, yeah. Because they don't have it. They don't have the audio. So.
All right, and we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.